Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. It's episode 118, back for a new season. It's been a long time coming. We were thinking about doing a couple of podcasts over the Christmas break and stuff, but things were wild here, up and down with COVID and stuff, and that's actually why we're filming this the way that we are. Usually you'd see Jason and I sitting in the same room together in the podcast studio over at Jason's place, and just not possible right now. Where we live locally, there are COVID-19 restrictions, so Jason and I can't actually see each other, so we had no choice but to do this digitally over the internet. And when we made the decision to do that, we realized, hey, we can bring Dad into this as well. So welcome, Jason. Welcome, Dad. Glad to have you both here.
Great to be here.
I didn't know who's going to speak first, so I thought I'd go wait my turn.
I'm sure there's going to be lots of awkward moments now that we're doing this digitally.
I've told Neil this in the past. When you do the podcast in person, you just pick up cues by body language and stuff that you just can't have online. So we're going to fumble over each other. Whatever, we'll just deal with it.
Yeah, it's true. It's going to happen. So I figured instead of just like jumping into hockey stuff, and there's a lot to talk about, there is, instead of going right into that, let's catch up a bit. Jason, what have you been up to recently?
Very recently, I've been spending almost all of my free time doing some programming for our Discord bot. It is absolutely wrecking me, which is another reason why Neil is kind of pseudo-hosting this podcast, because I literally just don't have time to edit it and all that stuff. So as soon as this ends, I'm back to the programming. It's a super big update, and I don't want to really say anything because chances are I might not get some of it done. So hopefully we'll talk about that later. But for the most part, that's what I've been doing. I've just been laying low. COVID's kind of been going up and down in this area, so I don't know. There's really not been a whole lot going on.
And that's not an exaggeration. Like literally all of your free time. Like
all of it.
I think you took a break for 15 minutes yesterday.
Yeah, I took a break for about 25, 26 minutes, and that was to go meet up with you to get this swag. For all you audio listeners, yeah. I have a reverse retro sweater, Boston Bruins, with the amazing bear.
The meth bear.
And then I went and picked up some food and then right back at it because, like I said, the season starts this week, and the update has to be done before this week. So there are other commitments I'm supposed to be doing in my house that are being ignored. My wife is not happy, but I literally have no time for anything else right now. So it's like work, sleep, program, rinse, repeat.
That's dedication. And darn, what was I going to say? Oh, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't join the Discord if you're not already, in case he doesn't get it done. You should still join the Discord, because if he gets it done, then the prediction system is going to be awesome. We have so much fun with that every single year. We've had different winner every year. I think we're going into the third year of predictions, I think. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. We've had winner in the first year, different winner in the second year, and maybe a different winner in the third year. So I like to take part in it. I would love it if you could join. That is linked down below in the description. All right, Dad, what have you been up to?
I don't know when the last time I was on, so I don't know how far back I have to go to update. But
it was we talked about my DNA. It's the last time we chatted.
Wow. Yeah, and we did confirm that you are my son. So
we did.
It's been just almost a picket fence of weeks going by. I don't know. I've heard other people that I work with experiencing the same thing. Maybe other people generally are. But I just find the time is flying by. And it's the opposite of what I thought. I thought back in March when we were going to be stuck in our homes for however long, those of us who are lucky enough to be able to work at home, I thought the time would go incredibly slowly and it would just seem like forever. But the opposite has actually been happening. It's really, really going fast. And I can't believe it now. We're already into the second week of January. It's incredible. So what I've been doing, working, most of my management team that I work with, they took the Christmas and New Year's period off, but I didn't. I stayed on. So I watched the shop, I guess, while everyone else had a well-deserved break. So the time went even faster for me because I worked basically every day that was not a holiday. And I'm about to start my next class at UPEI. I just finished my last one, got a 97.5 mark. So,
Damn.
I'm doing what I can. I'm trying hard. And I'm about to start my next one. In fact, I got my textbook. It's a fourth-year political science course, and it's about politics. It's about the Canadian election of 2019 and other things. And it should be a lot of fun. That starts on Tuesday. So I've got special permission from work to take an hour and 15 minutes off 2 days a week to attend that class via Zoom. So I'll be sitting in this spot with the same background and It was funny. I've got to tell you just a quick story before I finish my update. We were having a Christmas party for all of our staff, and several of the what? Are you laughing?
No, sorry, I kicked
Oh,
my chair.
oh, okay. What's wrong? What's so funny about that? Anyway, we had just before Christmas, we had a bit of an online staff party, to the extent that we could. So we had some games prearranged, and there was some trivia, and I did a name that tune thing. And during the revealing of the answers of Name That Tune, which I think went over very well, I reached around and I grabbed something off the shelf and I, showed it or whatever I was doing. And one of the guys on the chat said, "That's a real background? That's real?" I said, "Oh, yeah." And then I, turned around and I moved stuff and I did things. And he was absolutely convinced that the background was just an image and I was being chroma keyed on top of it or something.
Really?
Yeah, he said, "You can sell that background." He said, "That'd be amazing. That's a really nice background."
There you go. Well, that's what you wanted.
Yeah.
So
And back then, your mother had done a great job. Like there's a bit of a nail up here. You can't you can see it a little bit, I guess. And she had a Christmas wreath hanging from there and a bunch of other Christmassy things on the shelves that were, in season. So it looked really nice. And she did a great job at it. And when they found out it was real, they were just so much more blown away. Anyway. So yeah, I've been working, just getting ready for my next session of studies that will go into the middle of April, 2 days a week, and the work will continue. And I'm still playing around with my ham radio stuff, and I have some downtime doing a little bit of reading to pass the time. And your mother and I are keeping up on our shows that we watch. So it's really just staying home. We're so much luckier in PEI than you guys are in New Brunswick. We have 8 cases in total for the whole province. We've had 102 since March. Nobody ever went into hospital. Nobody's died. So, and there's no one in the hospital now. So we have 8 active cases, and hardly any new cases come in from one day to the next. But I know you're having an awful tough time there in New Brunswick, and can't wait for that to be over because basically we're locked up. It would be harder for me to go see you right now than it would normally be for me to go to the U.S. to go shopping for a weekend.
yeah, that's true. And we've been experiencing maybe an average between 20 and 30 per day, new cases per day here in New Brunswick, which probably seems so insignificant to 98% of the viewers out there because Atlantic Canada has done a very good job of mitigating this whole thing. And 30 cases is very low, but to us, that's huge. Like prior to these last couple of weeks, I think the biggest per day number was like 7 or 8 or something like that. And we're going on the 4th or 5th day of it being 15 plus. So it's unfortunate, but we did expect it. And I just have to comment real quickly, Dad, when you're talking about your classes and stuff, you use the word political and fun in the same sentence. I don't know if I've ever heard that.
Well, there are some strange people in the world, and I guess I'm one of them.
Well, I won't comment on that. Okay, so I just want to get into some notes here about the podcast itself. Moving into this season, it's going to have the same exact schedule as last season, every single Sunday with uploads Sunday night. Worst case scenario, Monday morning, depending on time availability, how long it takes to edit, yada, yada, yada. But the biggest change, and we announced this in the last episode of last season, is that we're going to continue to upload the full podcast as an audio-only podcast like we normally do, but there will not be a full-length video version of the podcast. This one here, it will be the last full-length version. We're going to treat that YouTube channel as a highlights, basically, channel just of the podcast itself. So if we have a conversation about Corey Crawford, we're going to cut that conversation, the video version, out of the podcast and upload that as a singular video onto the podcast channel. There's just not very much growth on YouTube for podcasts when you upload the entire thing. SEO, search engine optimization, marketing, when you're searching for something, no one searches for 5 topics at once. People are searching for individual titles and conversations. So that's the way we're going to move forward. The podcast is really supposed to be audio only, fully anyway. So we're just getting back to the roots and the original plan for the podcast when we started it almost 4 years ago, or roughly 4 years ago. I don't know. Yep. Anyways, that's kind of the podcast notes. Now to get into some actual hockey talk.
Just before you go, if I might, Something
You
I
may.
always know the viewers were asking for in the podcast previously is they want timestamps. Give us some timestamps. Give us some timestamps. Some volunteers were good enough to go in and do some timestamps after the podcast would upload. But this way, it's even better than that because instead of timestamps, you're getting distinct videos about each topic, which is even better.
Exactly. Now there might be a bit of a delay. Like we might have a conversation on Sunday. If you want to hear the audio version, you'll hear it Sunday night, but might not see that conversation visually until Thursday or something. It depends on the importance of the conversation. Basically, if it's something really time sensitive, well, that video is going to go up Monday morning, or that snippet. If it's just a random topic, maybe that goes out Thursday or Friday or something like that. So, but yes, 100%, you're right. That's a good point to make.
And we're still going to try to figure out the best way to do it because I mean we have an idea of how to do it, but I think the goal is if we're gonna try to do something we're not very good at and trying to focus our conversations on one topic. So like
Yes.
when we're talking about something, we're not gonna go away from it and then come back. We're gonna try. That's something we got to work on. But
You are 100%
hopefully-
right.
Hopefully, because of this, our topics are super focused on individual things, and then we can actually upload each video of those individual things. So if you are only a YouTube watcher, you're not necessarily going to miss anything. You're just going to have to click on more than one video to see everything. And it's going to be, like Neil said, like when someone searches for something, then we might be one of the results that comes in. Whereas before, we're not because we have 12 topics in a 1 hour and a half video that's not being advertised anyway.
Exactly. And maybe someone doesn't have time to sit down and watch an hour-long podcast. Maybe they have 7 minutes and they see a video pop up and they're like, oh, boom, I want to watch that. I want to hear about that. And they watch it. They got 7 minutes. They're good to go. Maybe the same podcast comes out and it's an hour long and they're like, oh, well, I only have 7 minutes. I'm not going to watch that. And then they never click on the video. So we have a theory. We're not sure if it's going to work. We know some other podcasts do it the same way. So we're going to test it out. But regardless.
But just bear with us.
Yeah, bear with us, please. We have serious stuff to talk about, but I have to be a little bit selfish here and transition to jerseys. Even though I know both of you guys are not super interested in jerseys, I need your thoughts. Jason, how do you feel about the Boston Bruins Reverse Retro?
I thought it was okay. I really did.
Is there anything you don't like about it?
Not really. It's not. Is it something that I would go out and buy and wear to a game? Probably not. I would definitely wear the one you got me. I like it better than normal ones that I see in that color because generally that's not a color where I'm like, I want to get that. But for some reason, I don't know why if it's my team, but I just like it. Like this little guy right here. I like this guy over here. He's awesome.
He kind of makes it.
He's like my buddy now. He's just chilling with me all the time. So I'm pretty happy with it.
Good stuff. Dad, Montreal Canadiens came out with a Reverse Retro opposite of their normal colors. How do you feel?
I absolutely love it. And
Really?
I thought I would anyway. I like blue better than red generally as a color. I prefer to have around me. I like blue. And to have the Canadians do that full flip like that and maintain the look and feel that it really should have, I thought it probably wasn't hard to think up. You just go with your little mouse and your color palette and you go click, click. Oh, I like that, and away you go. So it probably wasn't hard. It certainly didn't involve lots of design work like Nashville or Arizona would have, perhaps. But I really, really like it. And I would go so far as to say if they decided to wear that as their home color forever, I'd be okay with it.
I see a lot of people having that same opinion. And it is kind of crazy when a team is so traditional that they never kind of do anything crazy like that. But then they go and do something crazy. It is almost completely accepted by the fan base. So they really knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, and blue is one of their foundational colors. They're known en français as the tricolore, the bleu blanc rouge, and blue is a main color. It wasn't the largest in surface area, but it's not a color that has not been associated with the team or anything. So it wasn't that crazy, that far off the crazy farm. So it was a nicely done.
Good stuff. I'm glad you like it.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to talk about advertising. We're going to talk about divisions and all that stuff. But the most recent and maybe applicable news, and the reason why I'm wearing this jersey, is the whole Corey Crawford situation. So we're going to get both your guys' opinions and mine as well. But I just want to read his actual statements. So if you're not aware, Corey Crawford has retired from the NHL, and here's what he had to say: "I've been fortunate to have had a long career playing professional hockey for a living. I wanted to continue my career, but I believe I've given all I can to the game of hockey. and I've decided that it is time to retire. I would like to thank the New Jersey Devils organization for understanding and supporting my decision. I would like to thank the Chicago Blackhawks organization for giving me the chance to live my childhood dream. I am proud to have been a part of winning 2 Stanley Cups in Chicago. And that's really all we heard from Corey Crawford. Now, he just signed a contract with the New Jersey Devils just a couple of months ago. So this kind of took people by surprise a little bit. So really, two questions here. Should the New Jersey Devils fans be upset? And does he owe us more of an explanation? What do you guys think of this?
Well, the contract stuff's interesting because, like you said, I think he just signed a 2-year contract. I think it was almost $8 million. So you're looking at $4 million a year to go to a new team. And I think as a New Jersey fan, I think it's fair to be upset about it because, this is something you're probably looking forward to. This is a goalie that's won 2 cups recently. He's still playing quite well. He's 36 years old. But in terms of Corey Crawford himself, like from someone who's not a New Jersey fan or not a Chicago fan, as someone looking in, this guy's been riddled with injury history, and I don't blame him one bit for deciding that, I wanted to go for it, but it's just not me anymore. Or I'm not in it, or I'm not feeling the greatest, or maybe these COVID protocols are going to take too much out of me, or there could be a lot of different reasons. And I can't fault someone who's had a long career like that. He's had success. The only thing is you are right about just recently signing, that two-year contract kind of makes it a little awkward, especially when it's this close to the season. But I don't fault him, but I definitely understand how New Jersey fans can be upset.
Yeah, totally. Well said. Dad, how do you feel?
Yeah, I agree. I think the New Jersey fans can be disappointed, I would say, and I'm sure they are disappointed. How much upset they're entitled to be, I'm not really sure in the current context of what's going on around the world with COVID. All the rules are off the table. Everything has changed. We saw the Tuukka Rask situation just at last season when they came back for these weirdo playoffs in the summertime. And so I'd say that the fans have a right to be disappointed. I don't know if anyone has a right to be upset these days when it comes to players making very difficult personal choices, not only for them, but possibly for their family, maybe for their parents, for all we know. And if he's deciding to walk away from $8 million, he probably has enough good reasons to do that. Now, on the second question that you asked, does he owe us more of an explanation? And I don't think he does. He's obviously worked it out with the New Jersey management, and he's mentioned their cooperation in his statement. So I presume that he's told them that all they need to know. And if they're satisfied with what they know about the situation, then I think we have to take it at that.
Yeah, I mean, when I first heard the news, I probably felt like most New Jersey Devils fans. What the hell, man? Like, you've put us in a total bind here. We've got Mackenzie Blackwood, who's a real good goaltender, but our plan was to have you be alongside him. And now, what are we going to do? We're less than a week away from the beginning of the season. Like, this sucks. But when I stopped reacting emotionally like that, I don't think he owes us an explanation. It doesn't really matter. We don't know what's behind his decision. It could be a physical health decision. It could be a mental health decision. It could be he's just emotionally not invested in hockey anymore, and he's just done. He's happy with his career. Maybe something happened in his family with his. I don't know if he has kids. Maybe something happened with his kids or his wife or his parents or who knows. It doesn't really matter what his decision is. We have to respect it. It's not like he did it intentionally. Like that's the thing. Like if you think he did it intentionally, I think just boldly that's the wrong opinion to have. Just assuming the worst in someone. Mm-hmm. That cannot be the case. Why would he do that? It would make no sense for him to do that. So I think I don't need to hear his reason. I think it sucks for the New Jersey Devils organization and fans, but he at the end of the day, he's a person, and we need to respect his decision and move on. So that's how I feel.
Like, without knowing, obviously we don't know what's wrong or what made this decision, but I would assume it's got to be health. He missed 80 games in the last 2 years because of concussions.
Yeah, he basically missed a full season.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's a lot of time to miss. I don't know, like, you can go into something being super ready for it, and then as the time gets closer, you start feeling a little bit differently, and I think that's just kind of what happened here. So, it sucks for them, but he's got to look after himself first.
Yep, totally, I agree.
Yeah, I think when he signed the deal, he had every intention of playing it out.
Totally.
And in this day and age, it's just people are allowed to change their minds. And one of the things, on the good side, when you change your mind, there are consequences. And on the good side, I mean, in this case, for the team. If they were still going to have to pay him or something under some weird contract fluky provision, then I'd be a little on the upset side for the team and for the fan base. But
Right.
in this case, when you don't play, you don't get paid. And he's walking away from the money. And then, therefore, the club keeps the money. It keeps the cap space open for whoever else they might want to bring in.
Yeah, I mean he's walking away from $8 million up front. Obviously, that's taxed and yada yada yada. He's not getting $8 million, but still, it's a lot of money to walk away from. So it's a decision that is extremely tough on his end. So hard to judge it. We're not in his situation. So before we get into the advertising and all that other stuff, I just want to talk a little bit about the divisions because we are in a totally new world right now. We have four new divisions, four new names. Those are sponsored. Let's get into that. So the four new divisions are going to be the West Division, the North Division, the Central Division, and the East Division. So regardless of the rest of the conversation, I just want to say I do not like these division names. They make sense. They don't all make sense, but for the most part, they make sense. It's just we have an Eastern Conference, or we had an Eastern Conference. We had a Western Conference. Seeing that word West or East and now in a division title just feels weird. So regardless of that, that's odd to me. But then we have sponsors as well. So the Western Division is sponsored by Honda. The North Division is sponsored by Scotiabank. Central is sponsored by Discover. And Eastern Division, or East Division, is sponsored by Mass Mutual. What do you guys think of these new division names and the sponsors? Jason, what do you feel? How do you feel?
We'll get into this a little more deep in a minute, but it doesn't bother me. Like, whatever. It doesn't affect the play on the ice. Like, when they're playing games, it's not an additional ad I'm seeing on my TV. It might be on a graphic somewhere. Like, when they're showing standings, that's probably the only time I'm going to see it. So whatever. I do think it's kind of weird though that the sponsorship is actually part of the name. So technically, their company name is part of the division name. So it's not just Central Division, the East Division. It's the Scotia North Division. And like I have in my notes for later when we start talking about like the economics and stuff, like I'm just wondering how much value those companies are going to get out of that when, people are speculating they're paying mid 7-figure salaries to get their names as part of the division. But how often are people going to refer to those divisions with the names of the companies? Because there's an article on Sportsnet today that was literally posted 2 hours ago that talks about, I think it's a Central Division, and they don't even mention the sponsor name in it. Not one word of Discover in any of it. So they're basically paying to have the little badge symbol that has, East, West, North on it with their little company logo, which is probably going to be so small on TV that I don't even know if you're really going to see it. So I don't know. I don't know how much value is in that, but
we might see some progression over time as how they deliver that stuff. But yeah, it's just, I mean, Scotiabank paid a lot of money to have their name put on the old Air Canada Centre. I still call it the Air Canada Centre. I don't even call it Scotiabank Arena or Scotiabank Place or whatever the hell it's called. I don't care. It's Air Canada Centre. So as a Scotiabank customer, seeing them also dish out huge money to sponsor a division, I get it from the NHL side. It's great. They need to recoup some money, but I don't know. I don't see the return there. But regardless, what about the division names themselves?
That's why our bank fees are going up so that they can have a sponsored rink in every city and they have their name plastered. It's ridiculous how much advertising Scotiabank. Like, it's good. Like some of these places they do a lot of stuff for kids too. But like in terms of like the corporate sponsorship and having your name on an arena, like I don't know anybody that flies into Toronto and says, "Hey, look, it's the Scotiabank Arena. Let's go sign up for Scotiabank and get rid of our RBC cards." Like, I don't know. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's very strange. Dad, how do you feel?
Well, I'm just, I guess in a way, I think it's also so stupid in a way.
Yes.
We have these names that no one's going to use other than the people who have to. The NHL will have deals with NBC and with Sportsnet or whatever, and they'll probably be requesting or requiring that they use the names a certain amount or in certain places, and that's all fine. But the ordinary hockey fan isn't going to really care. I don't think anyway. I I still want to call the Montreal Boston rivalry the Adams division. We're going back a ways now, but what they call the division names is not critical for me. I think the names they chose are fairly sensible, other than the sponsorship piece. Although I think it's odd to have a team like Florida, which is on the coast of the Atlantic Ocean, in the Central Division. I don't think I would have lined the map up the way they did, but they didn't have much of a choice. There's obviously far more teams in the Eastern time zone than there are in the Central time zone or the Mountain or Pacific time zone. So they had to do something. But maybe now that we have sponsor names that are corporate, we don't have to worry about the geography as much. I don't know. I wasn't happy with the divisions that they lined them up in previously anyway. I didn't think that it made sense, frankly, to have Tampa Bay and Florida in with Montreal and Boston and Toronto and Detroit, whereas you had Washington and the New York Rangers and the Islanders all in a division as well, and basically you have to fly all the way over that division to get into your other teams in your division. Like, it just made no sense. But anyway,
Yeah.
as far as the names themselves, I have to say I'm glad it's Honda and Discover and Scotiabank and Mass Mutual. I'm glad it's those. They're fairly benign names. They don't attract any additional attention. Can you imagine if it was the Viagra division?
Yeah,
Right.
that would be awkward for sure. Very awkward.
Or the Imodium division.
And those are also names that have been sponsoring hockey for a long time now. Like if you watch NBC, you know about the Discover Intermission Report. You know that Honda sponsors the All-Star games and stuff like that. Scotiabank is everywhere up in Canada. So other than Mass Mutual, which I haven't really heard a whole lot, I'm sure it's quite prevalent down in the States. The other three are, even they're just commonplace with hockey for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a good. Your conversation, Dad, led into it was a good segue into the kind of alignment. I'm going to go through all of the actual divisions here. So Western Division, we've got Anaheim, Arizona, LA Kings, San Jose, Vegas, Colorado, St. Louis, and Minnesota in the Western Division. Not sure how I feel about that one, but it's
That is
like you
the
said,
weakest division, if you ask me.
as far as talent.
Yep.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That is a very easy division to play in. The North Division is just basically all the Canadian teams: Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, and Winnipeg. That is going to be a very difficult division to come out of on top. Central Division is Carolina, Chicago, Columbus, Dallas, Detroit, Florida, Tampa Bay, and Nashville. A very odd division as far as geography. And then the East Division, which the one that makes the most sense, is Boston, Buffalo, New Jersey, Islanders, Rangers, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and Washington. So
That's a tough division. Oh.
that is so tough. That is the elite division of all of them.
There's going to be a playoff team in that division that does not make the playoffs this year. Or maybe two.
Without a doubt, 100%. Now, it makes it hard to predict too, because standing wise, because when you make predictions of standings for the end of the season, you're thinking about rivalries and stuff. Well, there are certain rivalries that we're not going to see this year because things have kind of changed around a little bit. There's still going to be Toronto, Montreal, but there's not going to be Boston, Montreal. So things for all these fantasy people who are doing fantasy picks and all that stuff, this is all new to them. So I'm glad that I'm not into fantasy. I'd be stressing out right now, but regardless.
I think the games are going to be really good, though, in terms of rivalries.
Oh, yeah.
In the three American divisions, I think they play every team 8 times. So, you play some guys 8 times, you're going to get to like some of those players on those teams. And then up in the Canadian division, or the North Division, as they call it, some teams are going to play each other 10 times. So,
yeah.
We're talking about the Battle of Alberta. We're talking about Toronto, Montreal. Like I'm a Bruins fan. I'm going to watch the Bruins games, but I think the Canadian division is going to be awesome. I'm so looking forward to watching that.
It's going to be great for TV. And just thinking about teams who don't have a rival, I don't hate to pick on Arizona, but Arizona really doesn't have a primary rival. You could argue Vegas, you could argue LA, but I think this year we should see a spark with Arizona having a rival with someone, which will be great for the organization. This is an odd year, but it's a really good test case or a test candidate for the NHL to kind of test new things and say, hey, yeah, we can do this, or we can play games without any fans and all that stuff. So it's unfortunate, but it's almost just slightly a blessing in disguise as well, just from a testing standpoint. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah, it does. I remember how when they were talking about the NHL coming back for last season to finish it off, and they were really picking away at Gary Bettman to try to find out what this might mean for the future. And he was like, "No, this is no effect on the future. This is not a permanent thing. Put that out of your mind. We're going back to normal when this is done." But now here we have another season where, like you say, Neil, they're going to get a chance to try these things out, and they may like what they see. Not in all of it, but in some of it, they may like what they see. And who knows? There may be some possibilities of realignments here for the more permanent divisions once the COVID business is over with and we're back to somewhat of a normal. Maybe you won't see exactly the same thing that we had a year and a half ago.
I think that would be a great thing. I kind of think that divisions need fixed anyway, so I'm hoping that this leads into that. The last thing I have on my list, and the way we're doing our notes now, is I've put down a bunch of stuff, Brent's put down a bunch of stuff, and Jason's put down some stuff. So we're just kind of going through each person's notes. This is the last thing on my list. I just wanted to ask you, Dad, the Montreal Canadiens have made some incredible, or maybe not incredible, but some important moves in the offseason. Players like Jake Allen coming in, Edmonston, Romanov's coming up, Corey Perry, Tyler Toffoli, Josh Anderson, and Frolic, we probably won't see too much of. But I just want your thoughts really on those moves and the upcoming season for Montreal, because we may have discussed it off camera, but I don't think you've given your opinion on my channel. So what do you think?
No, I haven't. The first thing I'm thinking of is that for the first time in I don't know how long, Montreal is spending to the cap. They have not been for years. They've had this, $5 or $6 million just laying there, not in anyone's pocket, and they haven't been winning. And not that this will change everything, but I love the Jake Allen signing, especially on a 56 game schedule that we're going into, not counting playoffs. And I think Montreal is a playoff contender with this lineup they're going to have. But let's say you had Carey Price playing 35, 38 games and Jake picking up the rest. That's a tremendous tandem to go into the playoffs with. Two experienced, fairly well-rested goalies. One of them with the Stanley Cup ring, although Jake didn't play much in that Cup run 2 years ago. But still, just the experience that they've got, the two of them. And these other players, Montreal has instantly gotten tougher and bigger and more aggressive up front and bigger in the back end. And I think it's really, really good. We've had some diminishment of the team. We've lost Max Domi, and there's been a few other changes. But I think the team that's going to take to the ice this coming week, this is like Wednesday night. In a couple of days, we're actually going to have real regular season games again. The team that takes to the ice is going to be a tougher team to play against for a change. And I really, really like what I've seen them do. Marc Bergevin has not always pleased me, but he has made some really, really smart moves that maybe didn't even seem smart at the time. Like when he picked up Paul Byron off waivers or whatever the heck that was. That was incredible. Turns out to be one of the greatest deals ever. So he's seeing things in these players that I'm really eager to see Romanov lace up. As you know, we have talked about this part. I'm not a Corey Perry fan. I've not been one. I don't like his style of play. I think he's Marchand-like when it comes to his level of truculence, as Brian Burke would say. I don't like that kind of truculence, period, especially on Montreal, which I hope is a more classy organization. But maybe rather than Corey Perry dragging the team down into his level, when he joins the Canadiens, he will come up to their level as far as his responsibility goes. I watched a couple of interviews he gave to the English and the French press, French obviously with translation, and I think he's got the right attitude. So I have reserved judgment on Corey Perry. He may turn out okay, and I'm not going to hate on him until he earns it. So, yeah, I'm happy.
Sounds good. All right. Well, I like your opinion. I like your enthusiasm. Would you like to give any predictions as to where they're going to fall in that division by the end of the season?
Well, I think you've got some really strong teams there. I think Toronto's going to be incredibly strong with the moves that they've made and some of the baggage that is gone now from Toronto. Although Toronto always disappoints, don't they? But I think Toronto's a very, very good team. I think Winnipeg, maybe they've seen their best with the current squad, and maybe they won't be as strong as they would have otherwise been a year or two ago. The Calgary-Edmonton dynamic is interesting. Vancouver, I think they're going to be a tremendous team. And now with the East and the Western Canadian teams playing each other so often, I think we'll really finally see which of the sides of the country are stronger. And I think Vancouver is going to come out very well there. So I'd be content if Montreal finished third or fourth in the overall division. They may do better than that. I wouldn't predict them finishing first, but I won't be upset if they do.
Sounds good. It's interesting hearing that your opinion on predictions there, because I just prepped my 4 videos. I'm going to predict every single division, and a lot of what you said just kind of aligned with what I have written down here right in front of me on this page here. So I'm glad I'm not alone in some of my opinions.
You might still be crazy, but you won't be alone.
Exactly. Yeah. um, I'm not sure which one of you want to take it away, but I have here in front of me here, Dad, your notes here on the World Juniors. Did you want to jump into that?
I wouldn't mind. I just wondered. I didn't see it on your notes when I reviewed them this morning, and I thought this is the first podcast, probably the only one where we will get to talk about the World Junior game. And the tournament only ended, around a week ago. I just wanted your views on what you thought of it. I presume you watched it. I know I PVR'd all of the important games. I PVR'd all the Canada games for one thing. I tried to PVR all the Swede, Finland, USA games, just to make sure I saw them. Not to watch them all the way through in real time, but maybe to skip through and just look for the goals or look for the big plays. But I thought Canada had an incredible squad. They lost their captain at the very beginning of the tournament, uh, and that was a bit of a scare, I think, to the roster. But they performed in the round robin just tremendously and did very well in the playoffs until they got to that final game. And the Americans had a rough start, losing to Russia, but then they went 6-0 after that. So it was a really great setup for this final game. And I frankly think that the Americans were the best team, and I think Canada played very well and have nothing to be ashamed of. But losing to the Americans 2-0, the way the Americans played, they played exactly the way they needed to match up with Canada's skill, and they ended up coming away with a tremendously aggressive team in their own zone. At times, I thought it looked like they had 6 skaters in their own zone. It was only 5, but they were so mobile and they were everywhere, and they were clogging up the main shooting area and keeping Canada's chances to the outside. I thought they did a masterful job. The only downside was the after the victory celebration when they all gathered together, laid down on the ice with the World Junior Cup of Hockey or World Cup of Hockey, you know what I mean, the cup. And Knight, the goalie, skated away for a minute and came back with that big blue barrel with the Team Canada logo taped onto it, and posed with that too. In other words, this is the garbage can. That's what I took it as at the time. And
Right.
I thought, up till that moment, I felt really good about how the game had gone. Only one minor penalty on each side. It wasn't rough. It wasn't dirty. It was cleanly called by 4 Canadian referees who were very fair. They even called a crease violation against Canada, and which I thought was extremely fair because you could easily start conversations with 4 Canadian referees and Canada being in the final. So I'm really glad it turned out that the game was decided on the ice by the players playing, a really good game of hockey. But after that was over with, though, I think if I were the coach of Team Canada, I'd have a great big photograph of that garbage can. And it would be on the dressing room wall for next year's team. And
You know, the story behind that, though, right?
I do. I do.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
do. There's next steps and looking at the next blue barrel and all that. I
Yeah.
get that. And it would have been great to haul the blue barrel out. Just take the Canadian sticker off of it. It would have been fine.
Yeah. It needed some context, though, I think. But
Yeah, context before that game happened, maybe like.
yeah.
Yeah. But I thought, look, Devin Levi was great. And he was, when you look at Knight, I think it was a first round pick by Florida. And Levi was like several rounds down I think he was named the best goalie in the tournament, which I think is well deserved. He was really, really good. Um, the uh, I just think overall, I think that the future is so bright for all these kids.
Mhm.
Canada, U.S., and some of the talent you see in Finland and Sweden and Russia. Hockey's in good shape.
Did you watch the game, Jason?
Yeah, it's disappointing that you only get one game between Canada and the States, and it's over for another year. I was actually listening to TSN radio when they were talking about it, and one of the guys on there was proposing that even though it could never happen because IHF and NHL don't get along, was they almost wanted to do like kind of like a Ryder Cup every 4 years in a way, on the opposite 2 years of the Olympics, where you have Canada versus USA. So you have their junior team, the women's team, and maybe like the NHL team, and they each play a game. and it's done as a series. So the first combined team that gets 4 wins wins the series, just to get everyone in on it. And I thought that'd be kind of cool, but you could never do that because IHF and NHL just don't get along.
That's interesting, though.
I think if Canada and United States had a best game of 5 or a game of 5, like, you know, who could win 3 first, I think that would have been incredible to watch. I think Canada. I still think Canada was the best team in the tournament. I think the Americans played extremely well that game. They 100% deserved the win, but and I don't think I'm being biased here. I think that was actually one of the strongest teams that Canada's ever put out on the ice. Like, they were unstoppable, and then just for whatever reason they just didn't have it one game, and that's all it takes in a tournament like that. So massive kudos to the States. If I could have seen a best of 5, I would have loved it. It would have been amazing, and the Americans very well could have still won. But it's just great hockey. It's entertaining. They're just going for it, and I mean, who doesn't love World Juniors?
Yeah, it was an amazing game. I think defense trumps offense a little bit in that game. Defensively, America shut down Canada completely in that game, keeping Canada to the outside, stopping them in the neutral zone from getting into the zone, and they just had another level energy wise as well. So the United States deserved to win that game. Canada played well, like both of you guys said. Canada played really well, but the United States just played better. I felt like the game was completely fair, like you said, Dad. There was no specific play that was controversial or anything like that. It was decided very fairly. But yeah, I'm sad that we have to wait another year to see these games, because there's World Junior hockey is just something else. It's NHL playoff hockey is great. It's amazing, but World Juniors is just different kind of special. So I really appreciate it.
It's kind of like comparing March Madness to the pro sports. It's just a different kind of sport. That's a different kind of exciting. Yeah. I want to ask you guys about the biggest news about the World Juniors, though, and get your opinion on it. What do you think of that couple winning $8.7 million on the 50-50 tickets?
That's how much they won?
$8.7 million on a 50-50 ticket.
I heard them saying, I think maybe during that final game, that Edmonton is the 50-50 capital of the world. And I think that definitely proves it. It's just incredible. I don't know. I don't really have an opinion on it, I guess. I think it's wonderful that they were able to raise, how much was it, 8-point-something million for whatever charity they're supporting. So I think that's the good news story there. Yeah.
That's an insane amount of people buying tickets.
That's a lot of stimulus money.
Yeah.
That's crazy though. I mean, congratulations to those people. That's 8.7 million. You can do a lot of good with that, or have a lot of fun.
I think I read that they plan to keep working. Like, they're not going to retire.
That's awesome.
I mean, maybe $8.7 million out in Alberta's not just chump change to us. I don't know. But
yeah, I was going to say it goes a little further here on the East Coast than it does on the West Coast.
Yeah, 8.7 million. Maybe they can build a piece on their house in Sherwood Park. Yeah. I just think it's great. Now, I know I've been, Neil, you'd know this as well, from little local games in our local arena back in New Brunswick. In the day, you'd have a 50-50, and the winning prize might be $75 or something. And sometimes, if the person who won it could afford to, they would just donate the proceeds back to the charity as well. Like, that's okay. I'll walk away from my winnings. You can have that too, and just glad to help out. It's a wonderful gesture. Wouldn't expect that with 8 whatever million.
No,
I think I'll hang on to that.
Yeah, life-changing money.
Really? Yeah.
Could get some new gear for the podcast with that kind of money.
Yeah, you could. New set.
Yeah.
Coming to you live from Las Vegas.
Yeah. All right, what else you got, Dad?
I've seen it discussed a little bit, and when in the Olympic context, I know in Canada, our representative on the International Olympic Committee, and you got to love names. This guy's name is Dick Pound.
Oh yeah.
Just saying. But he made some commentary about his view that the general population would more or less support the notion of Olympic athletes all receiving the COVID vaccine ahead of schedule, where they normally would be scheduled, if it would guarantee a successful Olympics coming up in Tokyo. Tokyo, I guess. And there was immediate reaction to that. And it got me thinking, and I'm sure the discussions happened, and maybe I just haven't been paying attention, but I'm curious as to what you guys think about any plan or program that would vaccinate the NHL players early so that we could be guaranteed or have a more settled guarantee of a season that doesn't involve a lot of postponements like we're already going to see with Columbus and Dallas, and doesn't involve a lot of uncertainty. If all the players and all the staff were vaccinated and got both their shots, let's say by the end of February, then you know that you could run right into July and not have to worry about COVID, presuming that the vaccinations work. They vaccinations work the way they're supposed to work. So just wondering what you're thinking about that.
Did we talk about that on
Uh,
anything? I know we talked about it, but I don't know if we talked about it on anything like public.
I made a video about it, so I'm gonna
Okay,
let
maybe that's
yeah,
what I'm thinking about.
you go first.
Because I know that the NHL let it slip out there that they were trying to buy vaccines for the players, and they got immediate reaction. And then, they had their PR people come out and say, "Oh no, we were just testing the waters or whatever related to see what was there." I don't think anyone is going to win the public relations battle with the public when it comes to this. Like, it doesn't matter who you are or what you're doing. You could be doing something amazing, and there's still going to be a group of people saying, "Wait your turn."
Yes.
I don't know how I feel about it because, on the one hand, the two companies that are making the vaccine right now are private companies, and they're allowed to sell it to whoever they want. So if the NHL comes out and decides they're going to pay more money than the government of the United States and Canada is willing to pay them, then who are we to say, hey, you can't do that? They're a business, and they're going to try to make as much money off this as they can. That said, I would hope that the government is bidding in a place where, private companies or private corporations aren't necessarily getting ahead of us so that we're just waiting forever for the regular person to get it. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's tough, and if I had to side with one side, I think I would probably side with the masses on this one, just to let people wait their turns. There's definitely steps the NHL can do, which they're doing now, to try to prevent things from happening. Like, they have more precautions in place and stuff, but I mean, it's not bulletproof. Obviously, it's not like a bubble, and the bubbles are done. We're not going to see any more bubbles, except for maybe if a playoff requires it. I don't know. I can't blame the public for being mad, because it's sports, and yeah, sports has an important role for a lot of people's lives. It's entertainment. People are at home; they need something to watch. I get that, but at the same time, it's just sports. Like, we have healthcare people who still haven't got their stuff yet, and I can't, I have a sister that's a nurse, and I can't defend people saying that sports people should get it over, regular people that are working in hospitals that are putting themselves at risk all the time, and they don't have theirs yet. So
Yeah.
I would say, depending on what public is what, maybe like a person like me, I could see the NHL getting it over a person like me who's just a regular Joe. But in terms of people in like the healthcare industry and seniors and people in homes, like I would hope that those people get it before, professional athletes do.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think if there's a surplus of vaccines, by all means, NHL, go buy whatever you want to buy. If it's not taking away from someone else or a government or a country or whatever, that's kind of where I stand. If there's lots available, go ahead and buy it. If there's a limited supply, which I think there is, maybe you shouldn't. So that's my 2 cents.
And then you get the situation, and I think all the whole range of opinions all have valid foundations, but then you get the situation where you look at the jurisdiction of Florida. This is a case in point. In both Miami and Tampa Bay, you've got hockey teams. You've also got a state jurisdiction that's basically said, we don't have a priority list. First come, first serve, in you go, get vaccinated. There's even Canadians who've gone down to Florida against the instructions or against the recommendations of our own government to travel internationally. They've gone down there, and some of them have gotten vaccinated. So we've gone to the States, which you're not supposed to do, but they've gotten vaccinated while they're down there. Pretty hard to fault that.
Yeah.
So let's say, and I have a point here. Let's say Tampa Bay and the Florida Panthers decide, because there's no priority list in Florida, that they're going to have their team vaccinated, both teams. And then knowing that full well, let's say it's playoff time in June or July, and they've got vaccinated players, and they're not going to have an injured reserve COVID walking wounded list like other teams might have, it could give them a substantial advantage in the playoffs.
It's true.
So therefore, do you prevent a team from vaccinating its players if the team is based in a jurisdiction that actually would allow it? And and not in a way that takes away from the general public. So there's bigger moral questions there, but I haven't made my mind up on it either. It's not a lot of vaccines, frankly. A couple of trays of Pfizer could probably do half the league. So it's not a huge gap, I guess, in the overall supply chain. But and I don't think it's necessarily the same in Canada as it is in the States either. Canada has a very fairly well-defined list of priority people, and healthcare workers and seniors and all that are at the top of it. Hockey players, I don't think, are on the list. So Canada might have, in a way, a disadvantage because we are far more controlled by the government preference on how this vaccine gets rolled out, as opposed to the States, which will be more of a free for all. So
I wonder if they're going to. That's actually a really good point. I never thought of that because there were certain places last year where COVID was so bad the teams weren't allowed to practice on their rinks and stuff, right? They were not allowed. But there were other places like in Canada where they could have practiced in their rinks. There was nothing wrong, but it wasn't fair for them to be able to practice when other teams couldn't, so they were not allowed to do it.
Mm.
I would have to think something similar would be in place for this, although it's medical, which makes it, this is a tough one, I think.
Yeah,
because you're absolutely right. There is 100% an advantage for a team that gets the vaccination early, who knows that at least, they might have injuries, but they're not going to have COVID-related things well down the road when they need their players most, whereas other players and teams that don't have it, they could. And that's, I don't know. I don't know. That's a tough one. I never thought about that one before. That's a great point.
Yeah, this is what you call a can of worms. It is. I don't know. I don't know if there's a right decision or a wrong decision. It's just one of those situations that I don't know. We'll see, I guess.
I don't either. Anyway, that's good for me as far as the things I was going to raise. I know we're probably burning time here, but thank you.
Yeah. How long have we been going in for anyway? Any idea?
53 minutes.
Okay, so my stuff's pretty quick. I just wanted to talk about like some of the financial stuff, like in terms of like advertising and where they're going to go. Maybe I wanted to recap a couple of the new rule changes to remind people going into the season that have been a couple of rule changes. And I think the last thing was I just wanted to talk just briefly about the changes to their COVID testing. So in terms of the economics, obviously the NHL is seeking more revenue sources. Out of the big four leagues, they make by far the least amount of money and they rely the most on ticket sales. So this is hitting them the hardest. What do you guys think real quickly about having the sticker on the helmet for the sponsors? We already talked about the division, so I don't really need to get into that.
Yeah, you go ahead, Dad.
I'm cool with it. It'll be something we'll just eventually get used to. We're already used to it in international play, where you've got all kinds of big stickers that are Skoda or whatever, plastered all over someone at the Spengler. I think they're gross, but I don't have a moral difficulty with it. The league has to do extraordinary things to try to stay in the black, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah, me too. If you put it on the helmet, that's fine. Put it on the pants, I'm fine with that. Put it on the socks. I don't care about socks. Put it on the socks, the skates, the gloves. I just want it off the jerseys, as both of you probably know, since I collect jerseys, and people, not just myself, but hundreds of thousands of people buy and collect jerseys. As soon as I start putting advertisements on the jerseys, I mean, boldly and truthfully, will not be interested in buying NHL jerseys. So they can do whatever they want. Just keep it off the jerseys.
I have a feeling the jerseys are coming. I think that's the long play. I think that's maybe the final play.
Yeah.
I think it's coming. I think the jerseys they sell will not have the advertisements on it, which is kind of weird because you're getting the authentic jersey, but you're not actually getting the jersey that the players wear anymore. So does that make you want a jersey that has the little ad on the shoulder? I don't know. I'm with you. That's a point where you just say, nope, that's enough of that.
Yeah. All right.
So Daniel Kaplan, who works for The Athletic, he speculates that he thinks it's a 7-figure number that these companies are paying for the division names, like a mid-7 figure, so probably like $5-6 million. Times 4, there's $20 million NHL recovered right there. You get the teams getting their own sponsors for helmets, so there's a little bit of money right there. In terms of the hockey-related revenue, like obviously 50-50 gets split with the owners and the players are still getting their salaries, so the players are going to end up having to pay a lot of money back to the owners over time in the future. So this is going to come. The people coming into the league now are going to have to pay for the players who are winning right now. I don't know if people realize that. So in terms of like, you remember how the NHL wanted to renegotiate the contract just recently, even though they just re-signed one like a couple months ago,
right?
When they realized the financials weren't as good. And Gary Bettman said it he's very truthful about it. He's like, the 50-50 is not going away. So if we're losing more money than we thought, you're going to have to pay it back to us in the future, which means the future players are not going to have the salary caps that they should have had, which means their contracts are going to be smaller, escrow, all that. So I think players are on board with anything they can do to pay that money back as well. Like there was a retired player talking on one of the sports shows I listened to, and he said, if I knew that I had, that our group of players was responsible for paying a bunch of money back, I'd be saying, load my jersey up with ads. The more we can get on there, because to them, it's the business. They don't care, right? Like if you have to put like a sponsor, like, how like in the minor leagues, or not the minor leagues, if you have your kids that play hockey, like especially in Ontario, you can actually get like a banner with a sponsor that you attach to the bottom of the jersey of your child's thing. And, they pay for like part of your sponsorship. So he was basically saying like that, like, load me up. I don't care if we got to pay this back, we got to pay this back. And for a fan, that's not what we want to hear. Like the players and owners, they want to get back on track as fast as possible. And maybe some of us are kind of okay with some of it, but we'd rather not them or have them go too far. So like Neil said, I think jerseys are too far for you. I would say jerseys are probably too far for me too. I don't think the helmet bothers me at all. I think it will just blend right in. And the ones I've seen so far, like Capital One with Washington, their colors of their logo actually match their get up. So it just looks natural. Like even though they're skating around, you're not going to see the logo, but you'll just see that little glint of color, and I don't think it won't stand out. Now, if you had a big green pickle sticking on your helmet, that might be something else. But
yeah, I think the worst one I saw was Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh had a blue PPG logo.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously Pittsburgh doesn't use blue, so it looked a little out of place, but even still, it really wasn't that bad. Like you're not going to notice it, and it's not going to bother you. So whatever.
I want to just quickly, I don't know if you guys have ever seen, have you guys compared the TV contracts in NHL compared to what's out there for the rest of them?
As far as other sports?
In terms of the national broadcast. So like how much the NHL is being paid by national broadcast companies to cover for that year versus NFL, MLB.
No.
So, and this is why Kaplan said that the NHL was most hurt by this, because they have the least amount of fallback money. Like the greatest percentage of their income is ticket sales and other stuff like that. So NHL or NBC for NHL pays $200 million a year, and Rogers pays $436 million Canadian a year, which is around $340. So just from those two national contracts, the NHL makes around $540 million a year. So there's other people too, like there's regional broadcasts, like TSN covers some regional games down the States. I'm sure there's some. So it's actually more than that. But in terms of the national broadcast, it's $540 a year compared to the NFL, which is $5.1 billion a year.
Jeez.
ESPN pays almost $2 billion a year. Fox pays 1.1. NBC pays 1.1, and CBS pays $1 billion a year each to cover NFL for one season.
That's crazy.
You got NHL making $540 million and NFL $5.1 billion. NBA, ESPN, and Turner Sports, they have the national broadcast rate that's $2.6 billion a year, and then the upcoming contracts for the MLB, Fox is paying $728. Turner's paying $535, and they're speculating that the ESPN is going to be over $1 billion, which will put MLB into $2 billion a year on their TV deal. So the NHL is way behind the other three leagues. So it makes sense that they're doing what they can to bring in extra money, because they've been really hit hard by the pandemic. And sometimes as fans, you don't really think of it that way. You just think of, these are the four sports and they're all millionaires and billionaires. But in terms of the other three, like the NHL is significantly behind. So it's not surprising that they are lifting every rock they can to try to find out where they can find some more nickels.
It goes to ticket sales too. Like if you think about the amount of people that you can fit into a baseball stadium or a football stadium versus a hockey stadium. I mean, I think the Blue Jays game I went to a couple of years ago, I got my ticket for $35. Or $39 or whatever, and we were sitting like 11 rows from the field. You ain't doing that in an NHL arena unless you're in Florida, Buffalo, or Arizona, probably. So,
yeah.
You like picking on Arizona, don't you?
What was that? Sorry.
It said you like picking on Arizona, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Go ahead, Dad.
Yeah, but these broadcasting contract sizes, as we already know, are directly related to how many eyeballs are watching TV to watch these
totally
play their games. So like it's not like, my first reaction when I see these numbers is like, man, hockey's getting no respect. But in fact, it's all about the viewership. And as much as we're Canadians and it's all about hockey all the time, I get it. I'm not thrilled about it, but I think the only way to overcome this is to actually keep growing the game and keep growing the game. You get more eyeballs watching the TV screens. Excuse me. And some of these other innovative things that, Neil, you've talked about before, the great opportunities that we may have had when they played in the bubble just in the last season, where they could have more camera positions because you don't have fans getting in the way, and you could have maybe people at home choosing which cameras they want to watch and the way they want to watch the game. Maybe those are the kinds of things and those innovations that might drive upward the amount of viewers who can watch a hockey game and be happy. Because a lot of times, as much as I love hockey, by the end of the broadcast, I'm pretty upset with what I've seen, not because the play on the ice was terrible, but because the way they delivered it to me was terrible. So
Yeah,
there's work to do there too.
absolutely.
Apparently, from what I was reading this morning, they said to watch out for the board advertisements this year and just left it at that. So I don't know if there's going to be more digital ads or more. I don't know. They didn't get into specifics. They just said be on the lookout for a change in board advertising. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see for that.
Interesting.
One thing that I've noticed, I watch a lot of Premier League football out of the UK, and they have LED sidelines basically that are, I don't know how high they really are, but appear to be 3 or 4 feet tall, and they run cartoons along them, and they're in motion. They're very bright, very vivid. But one thing it does also do, and I don't know if this is something that can be overcome, is it drives digitally based video cameras absolutely crazy. They see all those digital things and they go into pixel hell somehow, and things just don't look right. And I wonder, and I hope not, that the NHL and even other sports are going to hopefully stay away from these kinds of LED based changing ads, because it really does not do well with cameras. But
especially with the ice too, where it's more reflective than grass. So
Yeah, that's a whole nother angle you need to consider, the reflectability, I guess. I think and that's why they changed the way they had their initial idea for the bubble, the way they had the arenas set up. I think they had screens down lower. It was causing issues with the players and stuff, and I think they moved them up higher. Jason, did we talk about that in the podcast?
I think we did, because I think there was a goalie actually that complained. He was there early doing a practice, and when the puck was shot up fairly high, where, like, in terms of the vision, if you're looking down the ice, if the puck was above the boards, you couldn't see it anymore because it was just disappeared into the giant screens that were on. So
Yeah. Anyway.
We can jump ahead and let's go into the rule changes real quick. So obviously the big one is the offside rule. You no longer have to have your skate dragging across the ice. It can be in the air. I think that's a good change. I think everyone's happy with that.
Yep.
The hockey ops department said that had that rule been in effect last year, there would have been 14 additional goals. So how much is 14 goals? I don't know, but it's more goals. So more goals is more win, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
Changes to goaltending. David Ayers, the E-Bug, obviously that created a little bit of a stir. So especially now with that and COVID, teams have to have 3 active goalies on their roster. They're allowed to keep one in their taxi squad if they want, but that player, even if they're on the taxi squad, has to travel with the team on their away game. So they always have to have 3 goalies on standby, ready to go. Which brings me into the taxi squad. So if anyone doesn't know what the taxi squad is, basically each team's allowed to have an additional 4 to 6 players that they kind of have as kind of like their reserve. And those players' contracts don't count against the cap unless they're actually playing, or like if they're activated for NHL rosters.
That's cool.
Otherwise, it's just like their contracts being treated like it's buried in the AHL. And that's just to I think this is just for this season. It's just to help with COVID. Like, there's a lot of hurdles with state to state travel and country to country travel, obviously. So basically, it just lets you have a little pocket of players where if you need to call someone up, you have that little squad right there. So it just makes things easier for the teams. Coaches, in my notes I have this wrong, but coaches will have to wear masks this year. They didn't have to behind the bench before. I think most coaches are going to like this, except for when they're yelling. Like, in terms of them sitting there going like, covering their face and let's have a shot. They're not going to even have to do that anymore because the cameras aren't going to be able to pick up what they're lip reading anymore. So I don't think that's a big deal.
That's okay. It's gonna look a little weird for us, but
I think, and we've seen coaches from other leagues do it too. Like, especially like the assistant coaches, like when you're watching basketball and stuff, they're just sitting there with their masks on. It's fine, like whatever.
I was watching, I think, one of the football games yesterday, and I just out of the corner of my eye, and when I looked, it was over. But I could have sworn that I saw an NFL coach with a mask on, but he also had a headset like I've got. And when it came time for him to talk, he went like this.
Just out of habit.
Just out of habit, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was watching some basketball, and his name escapes me. The coach of the Raptors. I'll think of it after. Yeah, he was yelling at the ref, and he took his mask down underneath his chin, and just had it underneath his chin while he was yelling at the ref. Well, what's the point of wearing a mask? Like, just so I don't know if he got fined or I don't know anything going on there, but it was just odd to see. But
yeah. So NHL has also put some more restrictions on players this year. Obviously, if they're going to be playing in each other's rinks and they're not allowed just to free roam the city like they normally are, they're only allowed to go to the rink and the hotel. That's it. You're not allowed to go anywhere else. All your meals and stuff will be served at your hotel. When you get back home, you're not allowed to carpool with other players or use valet services at your rink, which I guess is quite common. So you can't just show up to your home rink and have someone take your car and park it for you. So sucks to be them, I guess. But teams are being asked to conduct their meetings virtually, which is kind of weird to me. I mean, that's what the article said. I think they're talking about the overall team, like in terms of everyone, like not just players and coaches, like because obviously they're together anyway. So I'm assuming like in terms of like the higher ups, they'd rather people not get them in a room together,
or like marketing staff or whatever.
Yeah, maybe. And they also created a tiered system where they categorize employees under different groups. So like coaches and staff would be considered group 1. What's kind of funny is they put the owners and team executives under group 3, and group 3 is not allowed to talk to group 1 directly. So you can't have a player or coach go into a meeting with a team executive or an owner. So
weird.
I don't think it's very common that a coach or even a player talks to an owner during a season. Like I would assume that's kind of different. But in terms of a team executive, like a president, I wouldn't say that's far-fetched for the coach and the GM and maybe the president to be in a room together discussing how they're going to build the team, how they're going to make changes. But that can't happen anymore. The coach is not allowed to be in meetings with executive members or owners anymore, which I thought was kind of weird.
That's interesting. I guess it depends on what team you are. If you're the Ottawa Senators, you might have Melnick come down and yell at you every once in a while.
That's true. In terms of the COVID-19 testing, this is the last I have. So every day during training camp, players are being tested. And once the season starts, every day for the first 4 weeks, they're going to be tested. And then they're going to reevaluate and talk to disease control experts and all that to see if they can move to every second day. But in terms of the start of the season and the players, traveling between cities and stuff, that every day they're getting a test. So maybe that'll make people feel a little bit better about it. I don't know.
And I mean, recently we just went through a bit of an outbreak, I guess. I think Dallas canceled a bunch of stuff. I can't remember the ratio. Was it 6 players and 2 staff members?
I think it was like that, and they've delayed their start of their season now, I believe, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it was Columbus that held back some players to be safe. And then when you look at the list of players, pretty much every player is on that list. It's like, okay, you've listed a ton of players. So
it's like 19 players.
I don't think anyone thought the NHL was going to be immune to this. I mean, in every other single league where they had regular seasons, you've seen this happen, and we have to expect it, especially down the States where things are bad, and especially in like on Ontario and stuff too. Like, I won't be surprised if someone from the Toronto Maple Leafs or Montreal Canadiens gets it, because I mean, those two countries or provinces are getting rocked right now. So
yeah,
we have to expect it, and we just have to hope that it gets dealt with and contained well when it does.
And we were speaking privately about someone who got the vaccine and who was having symptoms, like negative symptoms because of flu-like symptoms, and kind of having a bit of a rough time. And I guess the teams have to take that into consideration as well. If they give the vaccine to players, maybe a player's not going to be able to play for a couple of games, depending on how they react to the vaccine and stuff. So that's a whole other aspect of the can of worms we talked about earlier. But it just made me think of that when we were just talking.
Yeah, I was watching the news. It might have been, I don't know if it was yesterday when we talked, or maybe it was the day before. And there was a girl on the news. She was down in the States where she had just got her second vaccine, and she was talking about it. And she said the second dose definitely hits a lot harder than the first one. And she definitely recommended that for the next 24 hours, you do not do anything. So you don't go to work. You're going to feel like crap. You take the Tylenols, you take the Advils, and you just deal with it. And the person we know that has it, that's exactly what's happening with them right now, is they just achy and nauseous. But that shows you that it's working. I mean, if you didn't feel anything, then I don't know.
Yeah.
Like that's your body creating antibodies to deal with it. So
yeah, I guess. Yeah, you have to go through the process. So blessing in disguise, I guess, a little bit. But is that all we have for today, Dad? Do you have anything else to add?
I don't think I do. I think it's great to have the podcast back, not so much as a participant, but just as a listener. I really enjoyed watching and listening to the podcast all the time, and it's good to have it back. And I think it's good for the channel overall because it can get, if you go months and months without any hockey content, real live hockey content, you can almost you wither away a little bit, and it's great to be talking about real things that are going to happen in days, which is awesome.
Yes, I agree. It feels very good to be talking about actual hockey topics now. I like the jerseys, I like the unboxings, I like the jersey concepts and stuff, but everything gets old after a while, and those are getting pretty old. So I'm glad to be kind of back in the hot seat talking about real hockey things here. So appreciate you both joining me. Jason, next weekend this will go back to you as the host, but I'll close it off today. So thanks, Jason, for joining. Thanks for all your notes that you did. Dad as well, coming up with some topics. We will be posting this tonight, probably around 7 or 8 p.m. Eastern, depending on how quickly I can edit it. Maybe sooner, I'm not sure. But regardless, it will go out tonight on Sunday. So anyone who listens right away, I really appreciate it. If you're that person who listens right away on Sunday night, I appreciate you. And on Monday morning, some people listen to it when they go to work or on their way to work on the bus or in the car or whatever. Whoever you listen to our content or watch our content, consume it. We really appreciate you. I hope you're having an awesome day. We'll see you in the highlight videos starting not this coming week, but the week after. And we'll make the transition next week as well for the new system. So thanks, guys. Have a good day, and I'll catch you later. Adios.